Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to IPFW's Mastodon Career Calls. We're excited to be able to present and host these webinars thanks to our sponsor, Quincy Recycle. We offer these free webinars monthly on a variety of different career development topics. And today I'm really excited about our webinar because it's all about how to land your dream job. And today we have Bob Abel, who's the HR director from Biomet, who will be giving us some tips on how to be a little bit more strategic in your job search and how to get that dream job. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob right now, and we'll get started with the webinar. Check of our audio. Can a couple people type in the chat box if you're hearing me and Bob clearly?
Okay, Bob hasn't spoken yet. Is that why you can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Very good. So Ashley, just give me the handoff when you're ready to go. Okay, I just got the old lateral from Ashley. So welcome everyone. Looking forward to the opportunity to talk about landing your dream job. Just a couple comments on the front end. It's no accident that I put the Biomet corporate headquarters on the front slide, because this whole discussion is going to be about discovery of self and discovery of the world around you, and trying to find how do you make that connection so that you find an opportunity that fulfills your desire. The old adage is there's only one success in life, and that success is to live your life in your own way. But a slice of that is invariably for us is to have a job, and the one that we enjoy. So going back to the Biomet corporate headquarters, I've been in the orthopedic industry for about 25 years. And when I first applied for a job 25 years ago, I had no idea the industry existed, that Warsaw, Indiana was the capital of the world as it relates to orthopedics. So I use that as an example that we want to broaden not only ourselves in preparation for finding that dream job, but broaden the vistas in which we live, to recognize what opportunities exist. Too often times, a lot of discussion is about this, we limit ourselves to the strictures of the experiences that we have, and the expansion of those experiences and the preparation to meet the demands of what those experiences might provide is really the essence of aligning the orbits that allow you to find success and happiness in the work that you do. So that's my preamble. That's the setup. But there's another one component I need you all to embrace, and that is all of this in its core is about your engagement in self-development and engagement of understanding the world around you. So I'm going to test you in doing that by asking you to engage in this process by asking questions. The slides that I provide here basically is a walk through key lessons that I've discovered in being on both sides of the desk, on looking at talent management, talent development, and recruiting, trying to find the right people for the job, as well as giving people advice, as well as myself, on how to prepare myself for the demands of what those jobs require. So that requires you to ask questions. You got to type them, you all did it, you got the thing, you said, yes, there it is, I can hear you, that's great. So what I want to do is, if I look at these slides as building blocks in this discussion, the mortar that's going to really hold them together for you are the questions that you have that are specific to you. So I want you not to be bashful, and I will try to answer the questions best I can as we go through. But that's also the insurance policy, that you're getting the information that you were hoping that you were going to get. Clearly, there's no silver bullet. It is a process, and that's what we're going to talk about. And in 1 hour, you can't give a perfect formula to how to find that dream job. But I do believe we're going to be able to exchange some information that's going to help us have a better confidence that we can line the planets, so that in preparation for self and preparation of environment, we can make that connection a little bit better. So it's really 3 pieces: the you of the formula, the dream of where you want to be, it's visionary, it's directional, and then how do you make those two come together? So that's really the 3 big ticket items that we're really going to talk about today. And I start with this. I mean, we all had, as a kid, right? Me, it was the baseball player, want to be an astronaut, rock star, whatever it is, and then reality tempers the idealism. That's good news and it's bad news. The good news is we basically become a little bit more realistic. What we have to guard against is we become too contained in the things that are immediately apparent to us, and that we retain a level of curiosity that we tend to erode over time as the vicissitudes and the ebbs and flows of life tend to creep in. So this conversation too is about never forgetting to stretch the dream, but it's different than fantasy. There has to be a reality, a practicality, and achievability, but I'm also suggesting to all of you that there's always a stretch element, that you always allow yourselves to extend one step further, a little bit more than what you thought you might be. This is the big ticket item on the you, and that is you have to consider yourself, when you're looking for your dream job, that you are your own franchise. You are the brand. And I put a little bit of, this is about all the sophistication you're going to get on the slide. You're the center of that universe, and everything that you touch, everything that you say makes a statement about yourself. So keep that in mind. When you're building the franchise that is you, the world around you basically makes assessments. You can look around this slide and you have emotional reactions to these brand images that you recognize. And when you build that dream job methodology, this is an important thing to keep in mind, that people will make judgments about you throughout, and that's just the way it is. So that a raised awareness of how you've built your life's portfolio in preparation for the job that you really want is what becomes the essence of you when it relates to an employer looking to bring you into their organization. So keep this one in mind. It's an accountability issue, it's a vision issue, that you are your business, you are your franchise. So keep that one in mind. For example, the one thing that frustrated me during the downturn, 2008, 2009, when they talked about unemployment statistics, they would talk about people that have left the workforce or given up trying. There's only one truism when it comes to finding your dream job and falling short, and that is to quit the journey. So part of this branding thing, you come to me as a human resource person and say, well, I sat out for the last couple of months or a couple of years in some cases because the job market was bad. That's an example of how it makes a statement. And what this conversation suggests too, that you're never out of a job. If you don't have a job, the job is to find one. And I think that's something else I'd like to reinforce, is that you have to believe it sometimes. And we'll talk a little bit about that more. I've never had a student come to me or a person within the organization or just independent consulting that ever came to me and says, well, I've done everything I could to find a job, that I couldn't come up with 10 things they haven't thought of. So part of this too is peeling the onion back and realizing that, you know, there's 175 million people in the workforce in the United States. 30 million jobs change every month. There's a turnover of average 5%. Opportunities abound. But that's where we'll get into the connection part and making yourself ready so that you're in the right ballpark to play the right game. So this is just a nugget that I think is clear, particularly for students, but it's true for everyone as well, that certainly experience and achievement is key, but personal performance qualities are essential as well. And in the ebb and flow of the current job market, the things I have listed here are softer skills, but they have, in my view, very, very, very hard value, very calculable value. So I'll give you an example. I interviewed a person, this is probably 15 years ago, and a competitor with the current organization that I'm in. And the person was a marketing individual interviewing for a medical device position in brand management or marketing. And the individual's only experience in marketing was in selling manures to farms in the Northeast. So think about that, medical device, hips, implants, knees, the whole thing. This individual comes in as an exploratory interview to talk about his experience in the manure industry. I'm not really sure how that works, but he did it. This individual we wanted to make him an offer before he left the building, because he didn't have the experience specific to our industry, but he was clear that he was a thinker. It was clear that he had great communication skills. It was clear that this is a person that we wanted to work for, that had an optimistic, positive outlook on life. Never forget that people like working for people, or people like to hire individuals they look forward to working with. And it's all back to that branding. Everything about you makes a statement. It isn't always about technical skills. It's about making relational connections. And we'll talk more about that as we go as well. And this is just the can do. And this is a reinforcement to the previous slide. And the top point is the point that is most important for a hiring human resource person and most managers, that people are fully accountable for their own actions. This whole discussion has to do with theme of accountability, of taking charge, and that you don't have room for the yeah buts or the excuses or anything like that. So this listing is a tortured list of things that employers look for, in addition to the previous slide that overlaps that makes a difference. Of most of the experience I have in human resources in dealing with issues of performance is much less about the technical capabilities and more about the personal performance qualities. And the most important thing about that, it is so much in your control to the degree to which you can advance and become an exemplar of those personal performance qualities. So keep that one. I can't reinforce this slide enough, that people like to hire people that they look forward to working with. They look for people that say, I can do, that I am accountable for the actions in which I engage, and whatever the mountain is, I'm with you, we're going to climb this thing. So individual accountability, and it really starts in the hiring process. I tell managers that all the time. I had a meeting yesterday that we had some issues, systemic issues in the field with some of our sales offices, because of proper protocol in hiring. If you want motivated people, the first place to start is in the hiring process. And if you're on the other side of the desk trying to get the job, the ability to show that self-motivation in your attitude and experience is puts you at an extreme advantage over the other folks that might be looking for that job. Okay, that's kind of all about a preamble to the you. And I'm going to hold my breath here until I get at least one question from the gallery. So this, you guys kind of made a mental contract with me that you're going to really participate in this. So anybody got a question out there that before I go into the dream? Well, while you're typing, which I'm sure everybody is diligently doing right now, this is a quote from Alice in Wonderland, and this is really a key component. If you're really kind of working on your franchise, your talent portfolio and self, putting the best foot forward of what you have to offer, and you're leveraging your strengths and developing the gaps that you might have. In my counseling and consulting as part of human resources and as well as an instructor, students will say, what do I do next? I said, well, where do you want to go? And they said, well, I haven't figured that out yet. And there you go. Here's the great quote. If you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. And it's a kind of a clever one. The Cheshire Cat said that to Alice. But it's a very powerful lesson for us, too. We need to rifle. When you're connecting self and your franchise with the dream that you have, if you have too many dreams, it dilutes the process and the capability and the likelihood that you're truly going to be successful in getting where you want to go. So start with the end in mind. Two points on beginning with the end in mind, and that is, one, that you will succeed in your journey to going from where you are to where you want to go. As I put the little button on here, you'll see it when you believe it. You have to believe that first. You can do it. But beginning with the end in mind allows that Alice path to be clear, that there's a level of focus, there's a level of understanding, there's a level of connection. Students oftentimes, we'll talk about this a little bit on the connection part, will tell me, and I've heard this from others, again, in consulting and elsewhere, that I've been doing my Facebook and I've been doing my Career Builder and Monster and I've been sending out resumes. That's not it. It's part of it, but it's not the essential part, and we'll get into that. But recognizing that you own the path. You own the now, you see the future, but the real trick in this whole thing, once that is prepared, is how do you get there from here? But you can't get there from here if you don't know specifically or reasonably specific where you're going. So keep that. And the Henry Ford quote here is applicable to whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're going to be right. So you have to believe it. And I like the Churchill quote there as well. Success is going from one failure to the other without a loss of enthusiasm. That's the tough part. When you're out there pounding the pavement, pushing all the buttons, doing everything you can, you got the right suit, you got the right tie, you got the right dress, you got the right shoes, and the door just isn't being open. The key to that is never, never, never quit. So I just want to put these kind of more inspirational than anything else, that the only sure method of failure is if you simply quit reaching for your dream. So keep that one in mind. And there's practical considerations too. These are industries that statistically are high growth. So once you've established yourself and you're getting your self portfolio together, there is a practical consideration that there's not going to be a whole lot of more shuttle astronauts out there, right? And that's an extreme case. The shuttle program has ended. So if that's where the dream is, we have to modify that a bit. So what I'm suggesting is that you do a sit down with self and others, and you frame up what those possibilities are and what they could be and how they best fit your skills, knowledge, ability, desires, passions. But the metaphor goes that you have to fish from a pond that has fish in it. And it may take a voyage of discovery. It may take some time to do that, but that is a key component to finding the proper connection between where you are and where you want to go. If there's no destination in where you want to go from practical terms, then you'll certainly be frustrated. And what often happens, and here's a dangerous part of that, well, dangerous is pretty strong, but here's the kind of the unintended consequence of that. you end up in a place that has more decision than you have on it. You do it because you set out in a particular direction, but weren't able to achieve it because it wasn't viable. Then you end up, out of necessity, finding yourself in a place that just isn't right for you. You can certainly, recover from that, but I'm just giving you a sense. Direction, focus makes a huge difference. The power of 5, and this is part about a couple things: the connection and the opportunity. I mentioned on the front end the Biomet corporate headquarters in Warsaw, Indiana. Imagine that. So what I wanted to put on this slide was all the companies that are on the list of the Chamber of Commerce in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So I started counting them. I started with the A's. I stopped in the A's, and because I think the point's going to be made by only counting them. There are 138 different companies, 138 in Fort Wayne under the letter A in the Chamber of Commerce website. So you can just do kind of a quick math on what the total number is going to be. So part of this is recognizing, again, as we pull this chain through and put the links together, that you need to expand your world to make sure, and I use the top of the funnel metaphor, that you understand at the top of the funnel that there's a lot of opportunities out there that you may not have considered. And again, I will repeat the initial one. I had no idea at the expanse of the orthopedic industry when I first tripped over it, and that's what I did. It was just luck. There was a job in the South Bend Tribune for a compensation analyst, and what the heck, I'll give it a shot. And it worked out remarkably well for me, fortunately. But this is to remind you that there's a big, wide, wonderful world out there, and you need to give yourself exposure to those opportunities, because many of the ones, and I've seen this with a lot of people throughout my career, happen upon an opportunity that they would have embraced readily if they had known about it sooner. So give yourself forgiveness. Go out there and peel that onion back, and make sure you look under, mixed metaphors here, look under the hood to see that if it's not clear as you go through your voyage of discovery of what's available to you, you can feel confident that you've done a reasonably exhaustive review of the areas that you might find interest in, versus you being forced in a position to accept what is necessary because of having to pay the light bill. That's part of the formula as well. Still haven't got any questions out there, folks. Come on now, let's go. The power of 5 is a little different. The power of 5 is two things. One, it has to do with making connections with people. Sometimes it's called the power of 3. I like the power of 5. And part of making the connection is reaching out to one person every day as part of a networking. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But the power of 5 is if you compartmentalize and bite-size these activities to embrace and engage and connect with people, little steps will give you immense connections if you do it on a consistent basis. So the power of 5, the other side of the power of 5 is when you consider concentric circles, right? That look like this, and then they go like this and go like this. Inside your concentric circles of finding the dream job, you need to identify approximately 5 industries, companies, areas that you want to explore. So in the inner circle is where you should spend 80% of your dream job energy. As you circle out further from that, you should not ignore all the other methodologies out there, be it Monster, Insight, or Indeed, and all these other things. But the amount of time you spend there is less. You're making sure that you got a broad net, but the focus really should go on the center circle. And that is the power of 5. The 5 of connections, of connecting with 5 people, in a week. One's on every business day, easy to do, doesn't take much time. The other 5 is making sure that you have focus. Focus in the center circle of where industry, region, or function that you really want to explore in your job search. And this is the Oz. I don't know if you all are familiar with the Oz principle, but it's more of a recognition and a self-reflection that all the performance qualities that you need invariably are within you already. And there's the old adage, if you need to develop a new talent, act as if you already have it. And the whole theme behind The Wizard of Oz was, as you recall, that the Oz, what's the song by America? The Oz never give nothing to the Tin Man that they didn't already have. This is just a statement of confidence to the folks that are on the webinar, that confidence and that ability to make those connections are within you, even though at times it feels like they are not. It's difficult. It stretches your comfort zone, and it may do that. But invariably, if you do believe where you want to go and you have a good vision of where and engage the energy to do it, you'll be amazed at the level and depth of capabilities you have within yourself. So a bit of a pep talk and a reinforcement in my experience that if you do believe it, you can see it. And just like the Tin Man and the Scarecrow and Lion and Dorothy, don't lose sight of the powers that you have within yourself to make those connections. I'm going to make a comment. I just thought about it about networking, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it's thought in my head now, I don't want to miss it, is that networking isn't a broadcast of a bunch of resumes, the people that you know online. It's really a quid pro quo relationship building thing here. And a lot of people really struggle with that. So I'm going to talk a bit more, but I wanted to get that on the table now and maybe prompt some questions about that, because for me, and it's these discussions, that is that's a difficult one for many people. I just got a question about asking me if I'm in my dream job, and the answer to that is it's a pretty easy yes, it is. And some of the components that might help you, what makes it that way is I have the experience and the educational background that puts me in a good position to do it well. It's a world-class company. That's fantastic. I love the orthopedic industry. It does great things for people, millions of people, and specifically Biomet every day, a million people every year. People that can't walk without pain can now walk without pain. It's just an amazing industry to be in. I'm also part of a global finance group and a U.S. sales group, which is the engine. To me, the key for a dream job, and again, it's all about you, but the one thing that really matters to me is that it has social relevance and that it challenged me day in and day out. That I have to exercise some judgment and discretion based upon experience, and that I'm seen as a resource for the organization at large. So appreciate the question, and I think that's a great introspective question as part of this webinar for everyone out there of what really that feels like, what really that looks like. So those are some of the components I think that we consider. And a lot of it has to do with a test of whether I look for, am I looking? Do I look at one as? Do I look? If I do, it's because I'm doing it on behalf of Biomet. I think it's a nice little practical test that if you stop looking and you don't look at the clock and you really look forward to coming to work and love the people that you work with, it's pretty close to the dream job for me. And for me, it's a second bite of the apple. I've had 3 dream jobs in the last 25 years, so kind of lucky. But you make your own bed, right? You do, and so it's fits and starts. There's some jobs I didn't get. In retrospect, it is a blessing because I ended up where I am because I was looking for jobs for different reasons, for economic reasons, for example. I didn't get them. I felt that I failed when I didn't, but if I had gotten them, I wouldn't be here. So you kind of have to look at the broad playing field and celebrate the successes where you can. But the key is knowing what you're looking for after all, and you're doing it for the right reasons. So thanks for the question. Keep them coming. This is huge, and if nothing else, this one's worth the price of admission. Biomet, for example, currently in Warsaw has 60 openings. And I interviewed 3 people this morning. Employers want to fill the jobs that they have. They are not here to discount candidates. If anything, we're too forgiving on trying to find people, because talent is without a doubt the most compelling challenge for the human resource and business management group, period. It's estimated in this year that unemployment may be at 7.2%, but there is a gap of 10 to 12 million jobs that can't be filled because not the right talent is available. So if you go back to that listing and you do a field assessment of where the growth industries are, and you put your investment of self and development there, it's an amazing process on how people are just dying to get you in and on the job. But again, you can see how important it is to line those orbits up, because high unemployment, because the people that are unemployed simply don't have the skills to fill the jobs that are available. So keep that in mind. And we want to hire, and I was in a meeting in Chicago last week with a cross range of human resource people with big and large companies, and without a doubt, the resounding common theme, is the inability to find the people that they need in their businesses or in their organizations. So for those out there that have focus, those that out there have a portfolio of development, that have a line of sight that is actionable and realizable, you're in a pretty good position to have an employer say, come on board, come work for us. Because opportunities do abound, even in a tough job market. This is another one I think is an important one, that the dream job is sometimes down the pike. Students will often ask me, well, I don't have much work experience. I worked at McDonald's, I'm graduating, what do I do? And I think this is basically what I often tell them, and that is you got to get in the game. You're not going to be the vice president of human resources, for example, when you're 22 years old and graduating from IPFW. You've got to pay your dues. But the best way to pay your dues is getting to one of those 5 companies, one of those 5 regions, one of those 5 functions. Get in the game. There's no more powerful reference on an employee other than the employer's reference. In other words, let them see you. Even if you have to take, and I'm using HR as an example because that's my area of expertise, that's where I live most of the time. You got to take an HR assistant. You got to take the receptionist, the old mailroom to the corner office, because then you have a platform, a stage to demonstrate your skills, knowledge, ability, personal performance qualities. Keep that one in mind. Get in the game. And again, this isn't about me, but I'm using my experiences that may help you. When I left, I used to be the director of human resources for Hacienda Franchise Group, headquartered out of South Bend. I was the first director of HR for them. I left there to go to Zimmer, which is a competitor of Biomet, but this is some time back, as a specialist. So I basically took 3 steps back because there was a longer and a greater opportunity to learn and to develop under a much bigger organization, which was it was under Bristol-Myers Squibb at the time. But I got in the game. And even take it back further, my first job out of college was a Ponderosa Steakhouse manager. Imagine that, right? Where'd I start? Started with dishwasher. But I got in the game. Graduated from college, took a manager's job, and within a year I was in a human resource specialist position in their meat processing facility. So these are all real things that don't always count on the Hail Mary pass. Sometimes you're going to take a handoff 3 yards up the gut, or earn your stripes, however metaphor you want to use. And this little scrum here with the thing is just to remind you that it is a contact sport. The world will not be the path to your door. If anybody out there has tried just sending out resumes and waiting for the phone to ring, it doesn't work so much like that. Remember the center of that circle. You need to reach out and touch people, build relationships, and have an objective in mind. Because the networking word has almost become a little bit numbing, because everybody says it, it's the magic, but you need to compartmentalize and put an objective that's practical and realizable for you. Okay, a question is, I got a good question here. Is the degree the key to getting a job in your industry or having a certain set of skills or experiences? A classic answer, well, it's a little bit of all of that. More and more organizations require a degree of any kind in many positions. For example, we have a manager or an inventory supervisor position that a degree is required. A business degree may be preferred over an English degree, that may be preferred over a history degree, but the degree doesn't change, or wasn't the skill process. It's the diligence and the stick-to-itiveness and the process of thinking critically is what the degree brings in a position like that. For example, I have an undergraduate in management and an MBA, not human resources specifically. So let me just summarize this way. Having a degree puts a key on your ring that it will open doors that will never get opened if you don't have them. Technical degrees are more specific and more likely to be predictive of jobs that you will receive with them, be it an engineering degree, mathematics degree, physics degree. Because we've all heard about the science, the technical, engineering and mathematics. Those are the big pushes because there is links between the education you get and the field and positions you'll go into. The broader ones, like organizational leadership and supervision, which I was a part of at IPFW, those are softer, but they do put keys on the ring. And the good news, bad news, it broadens the areas of application from a job perspective, but it also makes it less obvious of which ones those would be for a potential employer. So it is a blend of the degree. It's a ticket to the dance in the most cases for professional positions. Skills, knowledge, and ability certainly are a component to that. And the more that you can make that connection between what your skills, knowledge, ability is, as well as your education to the position, again, the whole connection in the end is convincing the employer that what you have brought to the table from skills, knowledge, ability, education, is what is necessary for you to make a meaningful contribution to the advancing the successes of that organization. So that's a great question, but it is a portfolio of things. It's a mix of things. There are cases where the degree alone, all else being equal, with someone with a degree and 2 years of experience, they actually would take the person with the degree only. Because it goes a lot back to, it isn't all about the technical. It's about the social, the connection, the personal performance qualities, the positive, the self-starter. Those are non-technical, non-experiential. But if you do have the experience, and you can also convey not only in your interview, because the interview has two things going on. It has the event of the interview where they see you and you're sitting across the desk. The other interview is having your experiences conveyed that reflects the positive nature and your work qualities. So keep that in mind. So I've got a slide about interviewing. We'll talk about that, and hopefully there will be some questions. So hopefully, Sandra, that helps that. And it depends on industry too, and you had to do a homework. For example, I used to work with a person that if someone didn't have a 3.5 on their GPA on their resume, they wouldn't consider them, which is just plain silly. But those folks exist out there. So the nature of the homework that you do and getting a grounding on that is very important when you set out on your, again, journey of discovery. So thanks for the question. 75%. Some people say higher. I've heard as high as 80. Jobs are never posted anywhere. So if we're relying on Indeed or Monster or Career Builder, you got to remember 75% aren't showing up there, and that's really where the networking comes in. And networking, again, is a contact sport. It needs to be focused, and you need to do it with as comfortable within your own skin. Then when people think about networking and everybody envisions a cocktail party where you got the drink and you're working the room and hey, how you doing, pressing the flesh. My advice to people on networking is it has to be something that you're comfortable with your own skin. It's a quid pro quo. It's building of a relationship. And the likelihood of you being identifying a job is more likely to come through an associate of an associate. So just remember that if you're looking for the dream job and attempts to make that connection, that the odds are, if you have 100 of them, the 75 are going to be things that are never put in the newspaper, never posted online, and just may not show up anywhere. So if there was ever a doubt about the power or the need for the network to be exposed, but it also goes to why you want to focus. Again, focus on industry, focus on location, focus on function, focus on number of employers, so that you don't become so dilute that you're waiting for people to respond on an internet blast or something like that. Because you're never out of work. If you're out of work, the work is finding a job. And again, as I mentioned earlier, there's all kind of opportunities that abound, but you have to be prepared for them, and you have to have a map to get there, and then make the connection once you do. And remember this too, that it's this. I don't know if you've ever been to Disney. It's when the song gets in your head, you can't get rid of it. But the old adage in human resources and networking is that it's a long life and it's a small world. So it's amazing, and I'll speak to the orthopedic industry, that if you burn a bridge, that bridge burning smolders for years and years and years to come. On the positive side, it's amazing how small the world becomes. I'm sure you've heard of the Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of separation, that you're 6 degrees or 6 people away from knowing everybody in the world. So keep that one in mind too, particularly if you stay in a particular region, that all of a sudden, if you do some essential networking, particularly within an industry or within the type of job, that it goes back to that original slide about everything you touch making a statement, and that your reputation is your brand. So keep that one in mind too, that you're never sure who or when they're listening. And it goes to some of the obvious stuff too about what you post on Facebook, and because employers look at those kinds of things, and they make a statement about you. And right or wrong, quick judgments are made. They can be positive, they can be negative. But part of this whole discussion is being well aware that somebody's always looking at you through the window. And what you want to do is make sure the image that they're seeing is one that is favorable to you. So I've got another question here. As a college student, where would you suggest we begin making those connections? Well, the most obvious one for me is with the student body that you around you, the network. Because I really am a believer that you don't have to be the cocktail type to be a good networker. You can be introverted, you can be relatively quiet, shy, but you work within your own skin with the people that you're comfortable with, and then like that concentric circle, and then work from the inside out. People will be surprised if they simply tap into their core group of friends that, again, have 6 degrees of separation from everybody in the world. And if you overlay that with focus, let me give you an example too for this. This is a great question about where do you make those connections. And I'm going to use a real specific example because in many ways it drives me absolutely crazy. I'm teaching a class now. Let's say there's 25 people in there, and I asked them how many are going to be focused in human resources as a career. 20 raised their hand. Okay, got that? Now here's the frustrating part. When I was at IPFW, I was the advisor for the SHRM chapter, Society for Human Resource Management. So we have juniors and seniors in this class. 20 of them are going to human resources. Not one of them was a member of the Society for Human Resources chapter with an IPFW, which connected with the broader human resource world in the Fort Wayne and Northern Indiana area, which has a monthly meeting where 150 to 200 HR professionals show up. So what I'm saying to the student that asked the question is that there are so many opportunities for comfortable, confident networking that all you have to do is sit down, commit to that, and think about the resume, the HR guy hiring and looking at a student that graduated with a specialization in HR that has a SHRM as an officer. All that is at their fingertips. And so often it simply isn't realized. So it's a great question to where to begin. And lead, I like the old adage, lead from where you are. It isn't a stretch, and you don't have to find a room full of strangers to begin your networking. And that's just a really basic, practical example that would apply to any discipline. I just use HR because it's the most obvious to me, the one I have most experience in. And I'll also add this as a plug for human resources, again, for me, and again, you can apply this to engineering, apply it to business and all the others. The folks that have took leadership roles at IPFW in the SHRM chapters are amazingly well-placed in human resources positions today after graduation. So it isn't just me just making stuff up as I go. I'm using that real-world example of my own experience to answer Kim's question and make sure you feel that those connections can be made, and there's much less mystery to negotiations that oftentimes seems to shroud it. Okay, if you cannot have both, do you think networking or having experience is more important? Well, I don't see them as mutually exclusive. Without the networking, you're likely not to find out about 75% of the jobs out there, and you can choose to do that. And if you have a very narrow understanding of where you want to go, very rifled approach, might work out just fine. I know an engineer who's a health physicist who did very little networking, but the narrowness of their search and the specialty of their discipline was so precise that he knew exactly where to go to try to find a job and was successful in doing that. But their focus was on 5 companies that needed health physicists, and they just focused, and within a couple of months landed a job. So if you're asking an HR guy, networking, or are forced to say I gotta have one or the other, I would say that the networking is a better place to start, because what it does, it goes back to opening up the world to you versus limiting yourself because of the experience. Now, one can make an argument to the other side. Look, I got to pay the light bill. This is what I've been doing for the last 2 years, and I just want to go to another company. I want to be a restaurant manager at Cheddar's instead of TGI Fridays, and that's fine. That's fine. But if you ask me, early on in careers, having the network that helps you understand what is available out in the world, I would start there. But let me just be clear. Rarely are those two things mutually exclusive. Coupling together networking with experience is really the double duty that you really want to bring to bear. Asked me to restate the Alice in Wonderland quote, and the quote is, "If you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there." So part of making the connection between what your talent portfolio is and what your dream job is provides a reasonable direction in where you want to go. If it is whatever comes up in the newspaper, then really you have the tail wagging the dog. The power of the quote of Alice in Wonderland is having a vision of self and what that dream job looks like, because then it gets rid of a lot of the clutter that can be a bit disruptive or barriers within your search. So that's the power of that. Visioning and believing you can get where you want to go basically puts a focus on direction, so that the efforts that you put forth are more likely to give you the return that you're hoping for. I hope that helps. Another question is, what is the first thing you notice when you review your resume? It's how white the paper is. There's Ashley, she's been in my class, she knows this thing. First thing you know, you don't read resumes, you look at them. And first of all, and I had three today, that they use it like a 9-point font so they can get their world's history on there. That's a mistake. The purpose of a resume is to get you an interview. And I learned this term from Ashley also. It's a rule of thumb. First of all, I noticed that 75% white, that people took time. Resumes are like speeches, right? You've heard I think it's Mark Twain. He asked someone, or made the quote one time, why did you have such a long speech? Well, because I didn't have enough time to write a short one. When I look at a resume that is so dense that they have no margins and they're so small and so thick, it tells me that someone basically did a brain dump and didn't take the time necessary to scour and to really torture a good-looking resume. So the first thing I see is how it's structured and how easy it is to read. Because again, we don't read them, we look at them, and we don't get halfway down the page. And don't kill yourself with bullet points because we're not reading them. So I give whole classes on resume writing, but the first thing is make sure it is apparent to the reader that you have given due diligence and consideration and that it's easy to read and not too thick, and you didn't sacrifice margin so you can put your life's history on there. There might be a little sarcasm in there because I just saw one that if I had it, I'd hold it up. I didn't have her. Oh, here. No, I might get him in trouble. I don't know if you guys can see this or not. It's like the Magna Carta. So anyway, that's the resume. Good question, thanks. And this is just a reinforcement. I like a little historical perspective in here. This is Teddy Roosevelt getting along with people. People love to hire people that they look forward to working with. That is a huge, huge element. A couple words about LinkedIn. From a business perspective, there's about 250 million now in U.S. alone that are part of LinkedIn, and most industries now and all major employers use LinkedIn as a method for recruiting. A word of wisdom there, though, is don't just LinkedIn makes connecting and finding people easier, no question about it. But the essence of networking within it are the same as if you were going to meet someone over lunch. That it isn't just send resumes to 500 people hoping there's a response. It's that center circle of reaching out and making a quid pro quo connection with someone. So keep that in mind as well. And just a couple statistics. Certainly within Biomet, within Zimmer, all the orthopedic companies, they all use LinkedIn. We're actually developing our capability because we've just started scratching the surface on how we can reach groups out there. So, for example, within human resources, within engineering, there's specific groups and specific industries. It's just a great place online to have a coffee clutch, so to speak. But again, it isn't just a place where you can, it's volume. This quality of the connection is really what makes the difference in networking in a traditional sense as well as in LinkedIn. And just a few tips. And I'll put a plug in for Ashley's career site at IPFW. I watched Anthony Giuliano did a deep dive on LinkedIn, did a remarkable job, did a great job, and it's posted on the career website. So make sure you guys, if you haven't seen that one, go out and take a look at that too. But these are just some of the things from an employer's perspective that we're very sensitive to. The photo, it shows, it isn't just that we get to see you, it shows a completion of the profile that you are providing. For example, I don't have one out there. You wouldn't believe the connections I have as a very passive user of LinkedIn. If you're an active user, it's remarkable the connections you can make in a very strong and meaningful way. And you see the rest here, certainly it's professional, and LinkedIn is different than Facebook in many ways in that it's less a social, but more of a business connection. And there's all kind of avenues and paths of opportunity for you out there. So I just want to put a couple blasts in for LinkedIn. And just put a plug in, Ashley put a plug in, I'm just going to echo that too. Job Zone. again, I've never had a student come to me or anyone in my career that has told me that they've basically at their wit's end and not being able to come up with 10 different things to do that they haven't yet tried. And that's really what I'm trying to echo here first, folks. Have a vision in mind, think big, think just amazing things that you want to do, and never be deterred, because there's always another opportunity. There's always another approach. There's always another way to door to walk through, another key to put on your key ring. So just take heart that if you haven't thought of if you can't think of anything else, ask a buddy, ask a career services group, give me a call, and we'll think of something you haven't thought of before and keep you on the right path. And this is the interview. Again, I do a whole class on interviewing, but just a couple of words of wisdom there. And the crash here is a metaphor that I've used. I've heard at the Indianapolis 500 that you can't win the Indianapolis 500 on the first lap, but you can certainly lose it. So what I'm suggesting to you, first and foremost, I'll go start at closing where I began, is that everything you do makes a statement. A lot of people have predisposed biases out there. Make sure you minimize the degree to which those biases can be exercised against you by being prepared, of having a portfolio in hand, of having extra resumes, for having your references if people require them, that you're dressed appropriately, I had one, God's truth. People, I can't make this stuff up. I had someone that I was going to interview at 8:15 today. I called the recruiter, our internal recruiter, at 8:30 saying she's not here yet. And the excuse they gave for being late was their GPS gave them the wrong directions. In the end, the person never did show up. They couldn't find Warsaw. They couldn't find the Biomet campus. So maybe they made the decision, well, they did make the decision for us, but that's an extreme case. But every little thing, being 2 minutes late for an interview, can basically dash the opportunity. And I know I'm singing to the choir, some of this is obvious, but never forget, everything that you do is making a statement about you. And though the company are looking for people because they're dying to get those positions filled, they want to be able to say, look, that's the right candidate, and here are the reasons why. And what you're going to do is make sure you put your best foot forward to do just that. Okay? And this is just the one about cover letters, thank you notes. All of those things make a statement about yourself. And yes, it's okay to do thank you notes via email, but you should do them within 24 hours. But don't forget your professional branding. And this is another point that I like to make as well, that you don't want 20 years of 2 years of experience. You want to go where you've not been before. That enriches your portfolio. That is the key to job satisfaction, that you're always growing. And that track record is something that is currency. It's like gold to a potential employer. That you put yourself out of your comfort zone and you learn new things along the way that makes yourself more fulfilled and more valuable to the organization. And this is a great quote. I think it really starts wrapping things up in a really cool way, that it takes 20 years to make an overnight success. So you folks have been building. You've been going to school, you've been working, you're putting your brand, your franchise together, and your overnight success is just around the corner. But it takes a while to build that, right? So you have to earn the right to be an overnight success. And accountability is kind of a watchword. Don't be deterred. Own it, own the process, own your own development, own the vision, and manage the connections that are necessary to get you from where you are to where you want to be in finding that dream job. And this is just a little quote for me that I just like as a call to action and kind of an invigoration of go out there and get it, because you can do that. And I'm just going to read it because I like it. Rely on your own strength of body and soul. Take for your star self-reliance, faith, honesty, and industry. Don't take too much advice. Keep at the helm. Steer your own ship. And remember that the great art of commanding is take a fair share of the work. Fire above the mark. Make sure you have that dream out there that you intend to hit. And as I underline, energy, invincible determination. With the right motive are the levers that move the world. And that really is the secret sauce or secret ingredient to finding your dream job, that you're undeterred. Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, sharks in the water, whatever metaphor you want to use. But if you have a dream or a light on yonder shore, and you have a focus on that vision.
Thanks, Bob. Just a couple of things. I will be sending an evaluation to all of you regarding the webinar today, and please make suggestions on future topics for these webinars. We would appreciate that. The posted recording will be on the Career Services YouTube channel. And just another reminder that we have appointments available to help you start putting some of Bob's tips in action. We can help you with that LinkedIn profile, resume, cover letter, etc.
I have someone typing. Okay. No other questions? Once again, I appreciate the opportunity. Kathy says thank you. Thank you all very much. It's always be a great part. Career Services, IPFW is amazing. Make sure you utilize that resource as much as you can. Don't forget to visit the website.